Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now today I am going to tell you a brief story of my visit just a week or so ago to shoe heaven, basically to Northamptonshire, and to the town of Northampton itself, because Northampton has long been known as the home of some of the most famous and revered shoe brands in the world. And if you go back in history, about 150 plus shoe factories at one point were based in Northampton itself, making some of the best Goodyear welted shoes in the world. Now a few brands have persevered. They have overcome the economic declines and they are still based in Northampton. And a couple of times now over the last few years, I have made the pilgrimage. It's about 100 miles from my home to go to Northampton to visit some of those shoe factories, to visit their factory shops in particular. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about two factory shops that I visited only a week or so ago and how much I enjoyed them. First of all, a little bit of a chat about Northampton itself. Now it's only about 60 miles northwest of the capital city of London. So it's easily accessible if you're visiting the UK and maybe you want to take a trip up to that part of the world to avail yourself of some of the factory stores that I'm about to talk about. But be prepared to leave the glamour and the lights of London behind if you do so, because Northampton is very much, I would say, a town in what I would describe as economic decline. Now I spent 2 days there the other night, stayed in a hotel, went to visit the stores that I'm about to talk about. And you know, as I walked around Northampton, which is a town, by the way, it's a really big town of about 250,000 inhabitants. So it really has the feel of a city about it, but actually it's a town. But it's really deeply steeped with the influences of the shoe industry, which the area is famous for. So as you walk around the town itself, you'll see street sculptures of, I saw a sculpture of children playing on a last, sort of shoe last, and the town football team are called the Cobblers. That's their nickname, after the historic history of Northampton. It's got a grand civic centre, and actually it's got, visually the trappings of success. But as you walk around, you tend to notice there's an awful lot of homeless people. I mean, I walked around the town quite early in the morning, maybe 8:30, and there were groups of young chaps drinking alcohol in the streets, even at that time of the morning. So it was a little bit unsettling, and lots of closed down shops, but still, there was some vibrancy there. It's a fairly big town with lots going on. But like I say, its history is really in the shoe world. So my first stop, and I went to 2 factory stores on this occasion, but my first stop took me to Crockett Jones, probably the most successful, not necessarily in terms of volume, but in terms of profit and perceived quality of any of the shoe factories in Northampton. Now, it's quite bizarre because many of these factories are in the town itself, and you'll find the factory sitting in a sort of residential area with houses all around it, and then you have this factory. So on visiting Crockett Jones, sure enough, this big sort of light-coloured factory loomed up just amongst housing. You just park alongside a house in the street outside, terraced housing all around. And Crockett Jones, of course, quite famous. They've been around, let me tell you, since 1879. So they've got well over almost a century and a half under their belt at this point. They own several shops in London, 2 of which are on Jermyn Street on their own. And I visited both of them very recently. They're still owned by the family that created the company way back in 1879, and they are doing quite well. They do make quite a large volume of shoes, and they have quite a high reputation. They hold the royal warrant, so they have the association with royalty. They also have the association with movie royalty, because for the last sort of 10-15 years, they have been on the feet of Daniel Craig when he played the character James Bond. So they've got that association, particularly their eyelet boot, which was featured in Skyfall, has become quite synonymous with the character. And yeah, they've done rather well on the Bond association. Now you pull up outside, and I'm going to talk you through my experience of visiting the factory store. Pull up outside, park quite easily in the street outside, and you see the Crockett Jones entrance, and then you see a sign pointing towards the factory store. Now don't expect glamour here, all right? This is a working factory, and the factory store is just an add-on. This is nothing special. You follow the building around, and sure enough you come to a side door which is just open with a sign on it saying factory store. You walk in, you go up a flight of stairs, and you're faced with the door to what they call the factory store, and there's a sign on there giving you some of the rules and regulations. So things like you're only allowed to buy 4 pairs of shoes on your visit. You're not allowed to resell them. Tells you the opening time, and there's a button to press. You press the button and you're told to wait. And basically what happens is this little factory store, when somebody rings the bell, somebody off the sort of factory line will come downstairs and meet you, open up, and they will wait there with you while you're doing shopping. So basically it's not a shop which is open, they open it when you turn up. So sure enough, I waited just a minute or so, a lady turned up, and she told me the situation. She said, go in, knock yourself out, have a look around, let me know if I can help you. So I went inside, and it's quite a pleasant room, a couple of chairs, but you know, walls and walls basically lined with Crockett & Jones shoes. Everything from the range there, everything from opera pumps to boots, town shoes, and everything in between. So pretty much everything that they have made or make at this present time. And there's a price list, depending on what you want, depending on the level of the shoe, the defect or whatever, it tells you what your price is. Underneath each shoe, there's a code which corresponds to a sign telling you how much your shoes will cost. This is because not all shoes in this shop are equal. Some are slight seconds, some are overruns of production lines, so they're perfect. So, you know, it depends on what you're looking at, and it gives you an indication. By and large, what I saw was that the majority of shoes were at least 40 to 50% lower cost than their retail equivalent. So a lot of money saved. Give you an example. The eyelet boot, one of their most famous products, I think they retail for about 600 British pounds. In that shop, I think they were retailing for about 320. So you're looking about half price, if they've got them in there. And that's the big thing with the factory shops, all right? It's the if. And I discussed this with the lady in there. Essentially, whatever they're making at this moment in time, so whatever has been ordered, whatever they're producing for the retail element to their business or for customers, they're going to have slight seconds or whatever it is that comes off the production line which won't go into retail. So there may be a tiny blemish on them or a little mark. They are imperfect in some way. Now that imperfection can be almost imperceptible, or it can be noticeable. It can be, you know, a little sort of scuff on the leather. There's nothing there that's going to stop you wearing these shoes in normal life, but they're not perfect. So they will be put in the factory shop. Now if you go there and you have a specific shoe in mind, so say for instance, we've talked about the eyelet boot. If you go there and you want one of those, but they're not pushing them through the factory at the moment, they're not on the line, they're not going to be producing slight seconds, they're unlikely to be in the factory shop. So you are playing a game of Russian roulette when you go there. Depends what you're looking for. Now when I went the other day, there was a really good cross section of shoes in there, and boots and everything else. And as I say, I even saw opera pumps and boots of all kinds. So fairly good representation. Of course, again, whatever your size is, you know, they may not have a full range of sizes. So there is an element of luck involved. But when I was looking at the shoes, lady came over, spoke to me, and she said, can I help you with something in particular? So I picked up a pair of Adelaide semi-quarter brogues, I think they were. And I said to the lady, yeah, I'm kind of looking for a pair of these, but they haven't got them in my size. Wait a minute, young man, she said. Always nice when somebody calls you young man. She went out into the back room, came out with a pair of those shoes. She said, here we go. There's another pair waiting to come out onto the factory store floor. they were in my size. Now I didn't buy them because they weren't exactly what I was looking for, but they were, and as I recall, just under £300 in the store, and they are something like 600 if I were to buy them from Crockett Jones at a retail price. So a really nice saving. But the point is, and I can't reiterate this enough, when you go to the store, it's a bit like potluck. You don't know what's going to be in there, and even if something that you want is in there, you don't know if it's going to be in your size. So don't be going there expecting to walk out with your allowance of 4 pairs of shoes, exactly what you want, in the colour that you want, in the size that you want. It doesn't work like that in a factory store. It depends on what has gone through the line and has been deemed worthy of going into the factory store. So that was my experience at Crockett Jones. I was allowed as much time as I wanted. I could try on shoes. Bizarrely, there was a sign saying no photography. Clearly I ignored that, but I wanted to bring you this report on what it's like in case you wanted to go to Crockett Jones. Long story short, if you want to save at least 50% or so on top quality, fantastic handmade, English-made shoes, it's worth paying a visit. But I can't guarantee you'll get what you want. So from Crockett Jones, I then went to Tricker'S. I was going there for a factory tour anyway, but I imagined I was just going to visit the factory store. Now Tricker'S is slightly different to Crockett Jones. They're not such a big entity. They're a lot smaller, much more of a family feel, I would describe. And I believe they were founded in 1829, so they're quite, their claim to fame is that I think they're the oldest established shoe brand still in operation in the UK. Still owned by their founding family. Their factory is a listed building, so it's a historic building. And it's in quite a rough area, to be honest. It's just off the town centre, again surrounded by houses. And as I walked around the front of the factory to get a better view of it, to take these photographs, you know, I tripped over a bottle of urine that was lying on the floor. There was lots of rubbish in the street. It's not a particularly salubrious area, but the factory itself is historic. It's a listed building, so it means it's a historically listed building. And the factory store is accessed at the rear. There is a small car park, so the door is just basically a door with a sign saying factory store, and there's a list of the opening hours. But again, you know, chances are it's not physically going to be open. There's a telephone number. You ring the number, somebody comes and opens the store for you. Inside, quite a pleasantly appointed little retail area with quite a few walls of their shoes all lined up. And again, even though Tricker'S is synonymous for heavy country footwear, particularly their Stow boots and the shoes that they sell, which are brogue in nature, their acorn antique colour is somewhat their signature. There's everything in there as well. Obviously they make everything from opera pumps to town shoes to those heavy boots that they are most famous for. Again, it depends on what's in the store. So you're gonna have a bit of luck involved when you go in there. Prices, around about 50% off retail prices. So I actually bought a pair of shoes when I was in there. I bought a pair of Malton boots, which retail at £595, and I paid £345 for them. Now, they are, to my mind, unblemished. I can't see a mark or a defect on them at all. So I don't know whether they're an overrun, whether they are a slight second, but it is like getting a pair of shoes that you've bought through a retail environment, but in my case, 42% off the full retail price. So well worth making the effort. Town shoes in the factory store were £295. So yeah, a very good saving if you're after a top tier shoe. Tricker'S again hold a royal warrant, and you know, they are really one of the most heritage companies out there. But to go to their factory in the area, you think, you know, it's not particularly pretty, but what they're making in that factory is amazing. And there is something to be said about being on the factory, you know, store with somebody who works on the line, being your host, so to speak, your seller. When you're in the store, you can ask them any question you want. They'll know it. And those shoes you're looking at were made feet away from where you're standing. So there is an element of getting to the real hub of the shoe world. Would I recommend taking a journey to go and see these factory stores? I would say yes. All right. Over the years, I've been to the Loke factory, Cheney, I've been to Barker's. I've been to pretty much all of the ones which are open to the public. I think I have been to all of the ones which are open to the public that I'm interested in personally. And each and every one of them has offered a great cut price retail opportunity for somebody who's prepared to make the journey. Now, you know, if you're after, like I did, I bought a pair of shoes which for me were beyond my financial reach ordinarily, but because I bought them in the factory store, it rendered them within my financial orbit. So it's worth me making the journey there. If you're passing nearby, maybe you're on your way somewhere else, worth calling in. It could be a wonderful opportunity to buy something which you couldn't ordinarily afford. Just a thought. So there we go. I hope you've enjoyed my little story there of my journey to shoe heaven and how you might find yourself in the same position if you're passing through and you've got the mindset to go and visit these factory stores. If you have enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, click subscribe. If you'd like to come on the journey with me, you can become a patron, and I make extra video content for my patrons, or you can help me by just buying me a coffee. The links to all of that are in the show notes below. So until the next time, enjoy your shoes wherever you've bought them from, and I'll see you again very soon.